Let us step back in time, traversing the thick mists of hundreds of thousands of years, to return to a primordial world where darkness enshrouded dense, tangled forests and the roars of wild beasts echoed into the void. There, beneath the flickering glow of the very first fires inside stone caves, prehistoric humans lived a wild existence, surviving on the razor-thin margin between life and death. They had no laws, no religions, no moral codes, nor societal prejudices like we do today. Yet, pulsing fiercely through their veins was a primitive, unquenchable drive, the desperate urge to sustain life and satisfy physical desire. How did those ancient humans, amid the utter absence of civilization, confront, fulfill, and transform their most intimate instincts into a powerful tool for survival? To understand this, we must first strip away modern misconceptions. When considering the sexual needs of prehistoric people, many picture brute force, coercion, or purely mechanical acts of propagation. Yet modern archaeology and anthropology reveal a vastly different, astonishing reality. Prehistoric intimacy was not merely about passing on genes. It was a complex labyrinth of brain chemistry, physical evolution, and the earliest emerging social structures. Millions of years ago, as hominin ancestors like Australopithecus or Homo erectus roamed the African savannas, their bodies underwent a monumental biological shift. Unlike most mammals, which mate strictly in season or during estrus signaled by overt physical cues, human females underwent a quiet miracle: the loss of visible estrus. A woman's sexual receptivity became continuous, no longer strictly bound to reproductive cycles. This subtle change completely overhauled social dynamics in ancient tribes. Intimacy was no longer just an event occurring a few weeks a year to continue the species. It became an ongoing activity that acted as a social glue, binding the community together and releasing the extreme stress of wild survival. In an environment constantly threatened by predators, storms, and starvation, the prehistoric nervous system was trapped in a perpetual state of high anxiety. The release of dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins through intimate contact served as nature's most potent medicine, reducing fear, fostering trust, and creating a sense of safety amid the freezing darkness. But how did community life function? Did they satisfy these desires publicly or in private? Anthropologists note that the concept of privacy simply did not exist during the Stone Age. Prehistoric families cohabited in sprawling caves or shelters built from bones and animal hides. Every aspect of life, eating, sleeping, hunting, and intimate acts, unfolded in full view of the group. Within those cramped spaces, sexuality was a natural element of daily life, no different from sharing a piece of mammoth meat or huddled together for warmth around the fire. There was no shame, no concept of guilt, and no hidden taboos. It was seen as an essential bodily requirement, much like hunger or thirst. Yet this does not imply that prehistoric sexual life was an unprincipled free-for-all. Though unwritten and unspoken, ancient tribes developed subtle social orders rooted in power dynamics and cooperation. Among hunter-gatherer bands of Homo sapiens or Neanderthals, social structures leaned heavily toward sharing rather than exclusive ownership. Strict monogamy as we know it today was non-existent. Indeed, anthropological models suggest that many tribes practiced forms of polygamy or group bonding. When multiple men shared intimacy with a woman, it created a fascinating phenomenon known as paternal uncertainty. Since no single man knew with certainty which child was his, every man in the band shared the responsibility to protect and feed every child. Thus, physical instinct was transformed into a brilliant survival strategy, ensuring the safety of the next generation. However, physical desires were not always satisfied through interaction with others. What happened when an individual was alone, or when tribal dynamics could not fulfill their needs? Science has uncovered incredible evidence that prehistoric humans turned to self-gratification. At the Hohle Fels cave in southern Germany, archaeologists unearthed a polished siltstone object dating back 28,000 years. Measuring roughly 20 centimeters, it was meticulously carved and smoothed. Microscopic analysis revealed that, beyond any potential use as a stone tool, it represents one of humanity's oldest crafted devices for self-satisfaction. The existence of such artifacts proves that prehistoric humans possessed a clear awareness of their own anatomy. They understood pleasure points and sought independent relief to soothe physical tension without relying on a partner. Furthermore, prehistoric art offers a captivating window into the ancient mind. The Venus figurines, such as the Venus of Willendorf or the Venus of Hohle Fels, with their exaggerated curves, breasts, and hips, were far more than fertility symbols. They reflected raw desire, celebrating the vitality and physical appeal of the female form. Looking at these small sculptures carved from stone or mammoth ivory, we witness the intersection of raw biological drive and the dawn of human imagination, symbolism, and sensual longing. Beyond figurines, depictions of intimate acts and explicit male and female symbols appear scattered across cave walls from Europe to Asia. Prehistoric humans did not hide their desires. They carved them into stone, embedding them within their early spiritual world and nascent art. To them, physical energy was intrinsically tied to the energy of life itself, to the fertility and abundance of the natural world. This brings us to a compelling question that continues to intrigue scientists. Did affection and deep emotional bonding exist during prehistoric intimacy, or was it entirely driven by instinct? Consider the Neanderthals, our closest extinct relatives, long stereotyped as brutish and mindless. Recent genetic and archaeological discoveries have shattered that narrative. Today's modern human DNA carries roughly 1% to 2% Neanderthal genes. This proves that tens of thousands of years ago, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals met, looked past their species differences, and mated. Such encounters could not have occurred purely through force or accident. They required communication, biological attraction, and forms of connection that transcended species boundaries. Moreover, the evolution of face-to-face intimacy, a rarity in the animal kingdom, profoundly altered the nature of physical connection. This orientation allowed for eye contact, facial caresses, and emotional recognition. Intimacy gradually shifted from a mere biological reflex into a shared emotional experience, where tender human touch offered ultimate reassurance in a dangerous world. This evolution coincided with the development of the human hand and tool-making skills. Hands freed from locomotion not only crafted weapons, but also allowed humans to explore their own bodies and those of their partners with nuance and care. The sensitivity of fingertips, combined with an expanding brain, elevated intimate connection into a complex art of human interaction. However, everything changed dramatically with the dawn of the Neolithic period, around 10,000 years ago. The rise of agriculture and animal domestication dealt a decisive blow, permanently altering how humans viewed physical desire. As nomadic bands settled into permanent communities, the concept of private property emerged. Land, livestock, and crops became assets to be guarded and inherited. For the first time in human history, strict patriarchal structures and concepts of chastity and legitimate bloodlines took root. A man wanted absolute certainty that the wealth he accumulated over a lifetime would pass to his biological offspring, not to another's. Physical desire, once fluid, communal, and untamed, was channeled into institutional marriage, family units, and rigid moral codes. Privacy was constructed alongside walls of mud and brick. From that moment on, human intimacy ceased to be purely about biological instinct. It became an object controlled by society, law, and religion. Looking back across this vast journey of hundreds of thousands of years, we realize that prehistoric humans did not satisfy their desires in a crude or mindless manner. They listened to their bodies in the purest way possible. They used intimacy as a bridge to overcome solitude, to heal emotional wounds in a harsh world, and to forge bonds of survival through the freezing nights of deep antiquity. The lingering handprints on cold cave walls, the delicately carved stone artifacts, and the strands of Neanderthal DNA still weaving through our cells today are whispers from the past. They remind us that beneath modern clothing, glowing screens, and complex social rules, we still carry the ancient pulse of our prehistoric ancestors. A pulse that forever longs for connection, comfort, and the enduring continuation.